What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com bringing you a video today to essentially tell you the story of my personal soccer playing career from the very start at 3 or 4 years old to where I am right now. A lot of you guys ask me about this pretty regularly, so I figured I'd make a video discussing this. Now, if you haven't seen me play before, which I think a lot of you guys subscribe to the channel have probably seen some of the playtest videos. If you haven't, you can click the little eye in the corner of the screen and there'll be a few examples that you can go ahead and watch prior to watching this video if you want an example of my own personal abilities. So without trying to sound arrogant, because I am a fairly confident guy, I think I'm a pretty decent player overall. And the comment section on these playtest videos tends to be pretty positive in regards to my own abilities, which is, it's flattering, right? It's nice to hear that somebody thinks that you are as good as you think you are, but at the same time, when people ask, why am I not a professional player? This guy's a walk-on to an MLS team or something like that. Or they ask if I ever tried to go pro. These are questions that I figured I would try to answer in today's video, because as good as I think I am, do I think I'm capable of being a professional soccer player? I think that's a little bit of a stretch, and I'll explain why in today's video. So if you want to learn more about my own personal career, that's what we're going to be talking about here. And if you do end up enjoying the video, be sure to support it with a like. So let's start from the beginning. I was born January 21st, 1993. I'm telling you this because it reveals my current age, which is 24. A lot of you guys always ask how old I am down below in the comments. I am also not American like a lot of people assume. I'm actually Canadian, still live in Canada, Ontario, Canada. That's about as specific as I'd like to get. And again, the reason why I'm telling you that is because it does play into the bigger, I guess, question that we're answering in this story, why I never went pro or why I never tried to go pro, to be more specific. Anyways, growing up, my first experience playing the game was basically when you're first old enough to play organized soccer, 3 or 4 years old. They have the organized house league, and that's what I did. Pretty much everybody did this at some point during their soccer playing career as a really young kid. So that's what I did basically up until the age of 8. So from when I first started playing, that's kind of just the learning phase when you're really, really young. At 8 years old, there were tryouts to play for the competitive team, which there were lots of local competitive teams. I wanted to play because a lot of my friends were playing, and I did truly enjoy playing the game. So it's something that I did try out for, and the club that I was trying out for had 2 teams, an A team, which consisted of generally the better players, and the B team, which was the kids who were still good enough to play competitive, but weren't obviously good enough to play for the A team. And if I remember correctly, I made the B team. So growing up, I was definitely I was not a Ronaldo prospect type player. I was not one of the better players on the team. I was kind of a middle of the pack player, I would say. And I'll also say this, I was kind of a slightly chubbier kid growing up. I was kind of one of the bigger kids on the team, but I always had really good leg strength. I was always typically pretty strong in comparison to other kids my age. And because of that, I could kick the ball really, really well. And as a younger kid, being able to kick the ball, both in terms of goal kicks and just clearing the ball out, obviously that would lend itself quite well to being a center back. So growing up, basically until I would say the age of 12 or 13 years old, that is the main position that I played. I was a defenseman playing center back, sometimes right back, sometimes left back, it would depend, but center back was definitely my main position. There was a little stint where I remember the main goalie got hurt, so I volunteered to be the backup goalie, which I regretted very soon after, but because I was the guy to volunteer and I wasn't actually half bad, I was stuck being the goalie for basically about 6 months, if I remember correctly. But after that, I stopped playing goalie. That ended that particular element of my career. So playing goalkeeper, not something that really interests me anymore, although it is fun to do from time to time. Anyways, at about 12, 13 years old, obviously playing center back as a kid, I think a lot of kids go through this. Everybody wants to be the guy scoring the goals. So playing defense, not really scoring goals at all. I wanted to try my hand at least getting some shots on the net. So playing in the midfield, playing as a striker, that's something that I really wanted to do. You ask your coach, he puts you up there just to keep you happy, but you didn't really do all that much. So you kind of end up back where you were supposed to be in the first place, probably should have stayed. But that's something that I really, really wanted to do. And at age 13, basically when you start to hit puberty, at least that was the case for me, I got a lot taller, I slimmed out significantly, my athletic abilities went from this level to this level, especially in comparison to everybody else. I was now the quickest kid on the team. I could always shoot the ball really, really well. I was actually a half decent finisher, even without really much experience playing in offensive positions. And I felt like I've always been a smart player. I've always read the game really, really well. So with my new athletic abilities, I slowly turned into a striker, which is kind of my preferred position even today. We'll talk about that more in just a second. So 13 years old, I went from being kind of a middle of the pack player to arguably, if not the best player on the team. Based on my own self-analysis in terms of what I remember, scored a lot of goals at basically the district competitive level. It wasn't really a super high level of soccer, but in terms of what I had been playing for my entire life, I was now one of the better players in the league. So with that said, I wanted to move up, as you try to do. You try to play on a better team in a higher league. So that's what I ended up doing. I tried out for a better team, ended up making the team, and I played for that particular team for 1 or 2 seasons until eventually going to, let's say, probably age 15 or 16. That's when I ended up jumping to the top level that you could play in Ontario for youth level soccer. Level 1, OYSL is what it was called. So I ended up playing there for basically 2 seasons up until 18 years old, which is the last year for youth soccer. And I feel like I fared pretty well. The level there versus the district level that I was playing at, it's such a big jump in skill. It's really, really surprising. Like if a level 1 team played at a level 5 district team, the score would be 20-0, if not worse. It really is a huge jump in terms of the ability, the players, the style of play. Everything changes a lot. But like I said, at that high level, the district league, not the district league, the provincial league, I felt like I fared pretty well, and I was always one of the better players on the team. Had a pretty good goal scoring record as well. Again, I felt like I was pretty decent. So I guess that's my soccer career in terms of youth level soccer, but that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. So as much as I loved playing soccer, I'm also Canadian. So growing up at about age 10, I decided that I wanted to play ice hockey, which is a very Canadian thing to do, but I still do it today. I like playing ice hockey, and that's something that I picked up surprisingly quickly. So I played basically 2 years of house league up until 12 years old, and then immediately jumped into AA hockey, and that's what I played up until about 16. So the reason why this is relevant to my soccer career, especially in Canada, where during the winter time there's a lot of snow, you don't play outside at all. Soccer is just not happening in the winter. If you can get in a gym or some kind of an indoor facility, which depending on where you live, there's very few of those types of facilities around to actually play the game. You're only actually playing soccer for essentially half of the year. So for me, half the year was dedicated to soccer, half the year was dedicated to hockey, and I was playing both of those sports at fairly high levels. At 16 years old, I realized that because I wanted to play provincially in terms of the soccer thing, I couldn't do the competitive hockey thing as well. I kind of had to commit to one sport. So at that particular point in time, I dropped the hockey and just played it more as a casual thing rather than the higher competitive level that I was playing at. Anyways, also, when you're growing up, 16 years old, obviously you're entering into high school, which is obviously very, very important as well. I played a little bit at school, but not a lot. I kind of just focused on the club soccer that I was playing. But going to school, obviously that's something that I valued as well. Did I like going to school? No, not necessarily, but I treated it as something that was important for my future. So I dedicated the proper amount of time. I studied, I made sure that my marks were up to par, at least up to the standards that I guess held for myself. I've always been somebody that has set pretty high standards for myself, and I never wanted to be perceived as a lazy person. So hockey, high school, soccer, all of that happening at the same time, that is a lot to manage. And then also at age 16, I ended up getting my first job working at a local soccer specialty store, which was a dream job for me because I was a huge boot enthusiast growing up. As you guys can see, that's kind of what my life has turned into to a certain extent. But working at a soccer store at age 16 was, again, something that I spent a lot of hours at that particular store for basically 2 solid years. And then probably the 3rd year was kind of on and off. I was trying to do other things with my life and dedicating more time to other things in my life. But anyways, this is all important to note because obviously growing up, you love playing the game. You love the sport of soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you live. But it's not the only thing in your life. You can't necessarily focus all of your energy on that. And that's something that I've always been very well aware of when growing up and just living life in general. I've never wanted to just play soccer and nothing else. I've always had other goals. There was always other things that I wanted to do. So I'm 18 years old with a lot of decisions to make. I'm playing in my last year of provincial youth soccer. That's it after that. You basically have to go pro, go play college soccer, or play in a local men's league. I'm obviously graduating high school, which is a huge thing in everyone's life. Once high school ends, you either have to pursue further education. You obviously do have to get a job to try and pay for that education, which is something that I did need to do if I did want to pursue some kind of post-secondary education. And if you don't want to do that, you have to kind of immediately go into the workforce and figure out the rest of your life. You're kind of on your own at that point. I also was working at this soccer store that I talked about, which was kind of my only way of making money at that particular point in time. And like I talked about, pretty much all the money I was making at that soccer store, I was buying equipment and boots to review for this channel that you're actually watching right now. So I was not necessarily in the best situation for my future at that particular point in time. So with all of those things in mind, and the fact that I am very hard on myself, but I was also very, very realistic, I didn't see a professional soccer playing career in my future. Usually, if you are that good, if you are that, I guess, exciting of a prospect, let's say, at age 15, at age 16, that's where you're gonna get some kind of, I guess, information, or at least be approached by a potential professional club that you could play for in the future. And that's not something that I ever experienced. And I don't know if that's a matter of just not being good enough, or the fact that I did live in Canada. It's just not a normal thing here to go pro. So with that in mind, being 18 years old at this point, I almost viewed it as like, hey, it's probably way too late for me to go pro. It's probably not a great idea to try and dedicate my years after high school, where you're essentially an adult now, to try to become a professional soccer player and really do nothing else. I didn't view that as a viable option for my future. So what did I decide to do? I did have opportunities. I had invites to go try out for different colleges and universities, both in Canada as well as in the United States. But I decided that I didn't want to do that because I wasn't necessarily sure that I wanted to dedicate, again, that much of my life to this game, that beyond playing college or university soccer, where obviously you're not making any money, I would just be wasting my time. So that's something that I was really, really concerned about. What I did end up doing was going to 1 year of university, or 1.5 year of university, 1 semester for human kinetics. My idea coming out of high school is, hey, I don't know what I want to do. Maybe I'll try to be a chiropractor, which sounded like a great idea at the time. But after about a quarter of the way through the semester, I decided that I absolutely hated what I was taking, finished the semester, but that's about it. After that, never went back to university again. And at that particular point in time, basically just doing school and this channel, Soccer Reviews for You, as well as working at that soccer store, this started to grow. This became a bigger thing for me, thanks to you guys, thanks to your support. And I decided that this was something that I wanted to try to pursue, not necessarily full time, but I wanted to dedicate a lot more time to it, try to make a video every day just to see what would end up happening. And luckily, it turned into much more for me, which is, again, what you're watching right now, where I am today. So in terms of my soccer playing career, after 18 years old, I did continue to play the game. I played in a local men's league, and that's something that, again, talking about skill gap between a guy you see on YouTube taking free kicks and an actual professional player, the pros make things look extremely easy. And if you've ever played with a real pro, you realize, especially in person, at how big of a skill gap there actually is. And when you jump into a men's league, even at 18 years old, and you're now playing against guys that are 23, 24, 25, full-grown men that are stronger, faster, and bigger than you, you really realize how much more you have to improve to even get to that level, let alone becoming a professional player. Again, you have to set realistic expectations for yourself. And I guess this is more of a life lesson rather than my own story. I think a lot of people, they grow up and they have dreams of becoming a professional soccer player, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I had those same dreams growing up. But again, at 16 years old, 17 years old, 18 years old, while I was a very, very good player, definitely an above average player, I would say, I kind of had it in my mind that I knew that there was not a whole lot of opportunity given my particular situation. Had I lived in Europe and grown up in Europe, hey, maybe things would have been a little bit different for me. But given my current situation, I decided that it was much more safe and I guess beneficial for myself to concentrate more on my future rather than trying to dedicate my life to becoming a professional soccer player, which was a major long shot. So if this is something that you really want to pursue, if you want to try to become a professional player, there is no set goal, there's no set training program. A lot of it is actually being that good and getting the opportunity. Sometimes there are guys that are actually that good but never get the chance, and sometimes there are guys that aren't actually that good that do get the chance and nothing ends up coming out of it. So again, be realistic with yourself, be honest with yourself, and really try to think about what the best scenario is for you at a very important stage of your life, 18 years old, where you have to make a lot of decisions that are going to have a huge impact on your future. Anyways, that is pretty much my story up until this point. As far as what I do now, still practice on my own a lot, especially when new boots come out. I try to play pickup. I try to practice as much as I can. I jump into men's league games whenever I can as well. I still very much enjoy playing the game, and I do it as often as I can. It's still a big part of my life, which I'm very thankful for, even though being a professional player would be pretty cool as well. But that's basically the logic behind why I made the decisions that I made. And I would say, just kind of looking back on it, did I maybe have an opportunity to go pro? I still think it's a bit of a long shot. Maybe if I really dedicated my life and time to it, it would have been a possibility, but I'm pretty happy with the decisions that I made looking back, going from, I guess, 18 to 24. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for something more personal in terms of learning a little bit more about me. So this is about as personal as I think I've ever been on this particular channel. So if you did enjoy the video, be sure to support it with a like. If you have any questions for me at all, I'll do my best to answer them down below in the comment section. If you're not subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.